Well, hello everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. It's Friday, 11:01 a.m. on November 11th, 2022. Um, Happy Veterans Day, and thank you all for your service and my deep respect to each of you and your families. And part of, my life as growing up as a son of a World War II veteran was in the shadow of that horrible war. My father never talked about it. Most fathers, I think, did not talk about it. What I know, I've discovered on my own through research once I got to the point where I wasn't necessarily engaged in the full-time practice of law, which was my career. And his story is so iconic that I felt a need to share it. I think it tells both the good side of America and then the bad side. And if we could understand exactly what happened to America, then I think we can get back on track. But if we don't uncover these secrets, then we never will. My contention is that the most important event in American history has been the assassination of President Kennedy, which was not simply the assassination of a president, a one-person thing. It was a coup d'état that overturned the republic, and that's something that I think is the historically correct view. But no one wants to admit it. No one wants to look at it. It reminds me of the story I got from David Martin recently. David Martin, the author of The Assassination of James Forrestal and also of Vince Foster, very important work. He reminded me of a play by Henrik Ibsen about a person who lives in a small community, and uh, people are mysteriously dying of some disease, and it turns out that it's coming from the water. And he does a lot of research and determines that the local tannery is discharging waste into the water, and that is the most likely cause. And so he figures, well, I've figured it out. I see what's wrong. All I have to do is let everybody know. But then the play is about what happens to him when he goes out and tries to tell everybody what's going wrong. And the bottom line is that the community didn't really want to know. And I think that's where we're at in America right now, is that, hey, if we take all of the patina off of this, you know, magic vase that we are creating and show that it's just clay, and it starts to see cracks and crumbles, and you realize that it's not really that great, wonderful piece of art that was going to be the most important creation in the history of humanity, but is only a facade, then it will crumble. So nobody wants it to crumble. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean it's solid. That doesn't mean it's gold. That doesn't mean that it is real, valuable government. The only way that this government works is if we apply the ideals that were put into the words that created the government and stop using it as a way to, play with money, play with people, play with values and deception and all of the Machiavellian tactics that, are taught. One of the things I could say from this week's study is that I'm more and more convinced that the financial powers in this world are Kabbalistic, meaning that they have abandoned the idea of a uh, positive God or a positive creator, and that they are living in a world in which they basically believe that what you see is all there is, and therefore they have adopted or preserved this warrior-like mentality of fight or flight, in which the only answer to confronting a stranger is to either kill and eat them or run like hell because they look stronger than you. In which cases, when you have a victory and you have, conquered somebody, that you to triumph and to feel that visceral uh, charge of adrenaline and whatever else you get from conquering. Well, that appeal to the reptilian side, to the amygdala, to the base instincts of mammals, while obliterating the higher functions that our minds and hearts and spirits are capable of. And it is to that elevation of mankind that our government was created. And despite the flaws of it, and despite the fact that there has been this coup d'etat, at least one of them, that it's like a great structure in which the roof's caved in, the walls might be missing, but the foundation and the structure in terms of the founding documents and the supporting documents such as Supreme Court decisions of the early court, John Marshall, Joseph Story, the intention of the legislature, of the Congress, behind the laws. We have to get back to goodness as being the goal as opposed to exploitation. And the financial system we have right now is built around exploitation. There is no other way to look at it. It has no humanity. It has no respect for human rights, the Bill of Rights, or anything that you might think is God-given, inalienable, because it isn't. They will take it right up to your life. They will take it. And that, of course, is part of McDuff's story, too. So to stand up and do the best we can while we have time. That was one of the things we talked about with Diane Sayre the other night. Why throw her, you know, great potential into a hopeless run for the U.S. Senate? Well, because she has a voice and she is doing what she feels is the best thing in order to help raise consciousness. And I think it's been quite effective. And one of the marks of its effectiveness has been the fact that while on the evening of the election, she had over 60,000 votes. By now, they've pared it down into the under 30,000 votes. And well, yeah, that brings up another subject. Were these elections even remotely reliable in terms of fairness? And I don't think so. I haven't had I have had enough evidence in front of me, and in terms of reporting and litigation, that and just plain old common sense. Come on, it's a digital system. At some point, some computer programmer is going to figure out how to hack it. even if it's not already built in, hacked as, Dominion voting machines appears to have been. And what are the other ones? I don't study it. Harry the Greek does a good job on that. I don't. But just my gut feeling is all I'm going by, but I do not think that this was a free and fair election in any respect. And this business of what's her name, Carrie, in Arizona, just being dragged out, and this Maricopa County seems to have forgotten how to count. This is crazy. This is manipulation, and it's obvious. Another thing I want to mention before I start looking at you guys as comments and questions is this. This morning at 9 a.m. my time, the Duran, Duran, had Garland Nixon as its guest, and the show was absolutely spellbinding for me. I happened to notice it and started watching it at the beginning. And I'll tell you, Garland Nixon, who has been my guest many, many times, he's taking off. He was taking off when he was with me, and but at that point, he uh, has thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers and viewers, and his show over on Rockfin is really, really popular, as well as on YouTube. Anyway, he was their guest, and just terrific, terrific commentary. I'll leave it there and recommend you look at the Duran either on Rockfin or YouTube. I think they're also on Odyssey and Rumble. Yeah, I miss Garland, but like I say, I think he's on a mission that is very, very big, and has platforms that are much bigger than I can offer him, and I want him to just keep spreading his really amazingly astute, logical, and experienced comments as far and wide as he can. So, and anyway, that was a great show. Well, I probably had some other things, but let's have a look at the chat and see what you guys have come up with this morning. Oh, number 33. We have 33 people, and that's that magic number. Uh, oh, and I do want to talk about Evelyn de Rothschild having passed away and the significance of that. Anybody who has particular Rothschild experience or knowledge, probably more than I have, um, make a comment, and we'll talk about that. Good morning, Robert, Harry, Corky, Christy, Brightmore, David, Holly, and Osbo Gosley. That's an interesting name. Let's see, did I miss anyone? Well, I hope not. But anyway, and thank you to all other people who are here and not necessarily participating in the chat. Okay, let's see what you guys got. Harry Han Cannon. The oligarchs hijacked our subconscious through MSM in order to manifest misery and decadence. Well, they tried, haven't they? I mean, I'm hanging on to my subconscious. My amygdala is still connected to my mentality. I'm still in charge. I hope you all are too. Certainly, you wouldn't be here if you didn't understand what I'm saying. And you think, oh gosh, all those people out there, they've had their subconsciouses hijacked, through the mainstream media. I I hope it's not as deep as subconscious, but it seems that way, doesn't it? The phenomenon of just not being able to discuss rationally things that we really need to talk about. It does seem that way. I agree with you, Harry. Corky, I had to cancel the show last night. I will do another minefield soon. I have a lot of things on my mind, but on the other hand, I am learning so much by doing my research and interviews. And also, Mark Kulak has been great this week. You need to watch if you haven't seen his on remdesivir. Remdesivir. Yes, the great panacea from Gilead. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to soothe the sin-sick soul. If you can preach like Peter, if you can pray like Paul, go out and tell your neighbors he died to save us all. There is a balm in Gilead. Well, if you want to pretend to be the source of healing, you might want to name your company after Gilead. And if you are, Ronald Rumsfeld and have a gang of like-minded deep state investors to get in on it, well, anyway, Mark Kulak did a great job on his most recent show about where it came from and, what it means for us, and it's not good. Let's see. Robert Kovacs, you keep telling us about the price of gold. All right. Hope you're not in the gold business, by the way. If you are, I wouldn't like to have advertising here. Good morning, Christy and David. David, you probably know some stuff about Sir Evelyn Rothschild, or de Rothschild, we should say. Numero uno, MNO. I don't know what it is, Corky. What is MNO? It doesn't work that way. The integral theory explains the health of nation states emanating from the level of consciousness in numbers and locations. I guess I shouldn't have picked that because I don't. Oh, NWO, the New World Order. Thank you, Corky. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, New World Order is not a flop yet, Corky. It's not. Oh no. You you know that Klaus Schwab, of course, he's a scary clown character. Did I agree with Harley Schlanger about the significance of the World Economic Forum in that it is a puppet of the British American Atlantic Council banking system that uses NATO as its muscle. That's the way I see it. I'm not saying I have any inside information, but that is my opinion. So, and yeah, the New World Order is alive and well. Hey, who do you think is sending all those military assets to Zelensky? And they've become the Ukrainian army has become very very powerful suddenly. Over the last 6 months. How? Well, you know how. It's them. It's not the Ukrainians. It's NATO. It's the New World Order. All right. With 500,000 troops. Oh, I see. You guys are talking about the Kennedy assassination. And yeah, I'm not going to try to get into the details of that right now, but I demand that it be solved. It's got to be solved in our lifetimes, or we have failed as citizens. We have to solve the Kennedy assassination. You know, I mean, we can speculate right now, but there's plenty of evidence. As somebody was saying last night, the Russians know, they know stuff. We are, you know, Five Eyes knows all this stuff, all of these intelligence agencies. You know, one of the things that I really admire about Garland is he knows the news business, he knows show business, and we talked about Zelensky, and he said, well, I guess the question from Alex Christoforo to Garland this morning was, what did Jake Sullivan do? What did he say to Zelensky when he went to see him a few days ago? And Garland's answer was, well, I- you know, these guys, they all know that it's a play, and it's a question of controlling the population of Europe and the population of the United States and Ukraine, of course, but so they sit around like you're creating the next episode of a series of a drama, and you just say, well, what we could do this, we could have an assassination over here, or we could have a bank run over there, or we could do this or that. But what they're doing is they're sitting around like a bunch of TV producers and actors, which Zelensky is, and he's surrounded by these types of people. Sean Penn. Need I say more? That are coming up with plots and theories of how to keep control of the narrative. And I thought that's a brilliant answer, because at their level, they see that it's all a question of how do we keep the people following the narrative. And then he went on to talk about how, in an answer to another question, another question was about Afghanistan. And one of the European commenters said, well, doesn't America remember what happened in Afghanistan? I mean, they got beat, Do the American people remember that? Garland said, nope, it's completely gone, completely off the radar screen. If we thought about, why did we lose Afghanistan, then we might think twice about getting American involvement in Ukraine. But it's not on the radar screen anymore. It's completely gone. Mainstream media has washed it away. So many things that we never see, like the huge demonstrations in Europe. Why is that? Because they want us not to get out there and have huge demonstrations in America. So many things that we're told are happening, but it's just narratives that are constructed by people sitting around, in directors' chairs with their hands together, uh, thinking of how we can control the narrative and keep the money flowing, of course, into the military-industrial complex. So anyway, great show. Appreciate the opportunity from time to time to get back together with Garland Nixon, and wow, what a great combination he is with the two Alexes at the Duran. So, okay. Would 500,000 troops? No, if Kennedy had survived, no, we would have. That would have been the turning point. We would have made the big turn right there. If Kennedy had survived, it would have been an issue of Vietnam and all the skullduggery of Henry Cabot Lodge and Edward Lansdale and the Westmoreland. And the CIA, all of that stuff would have come to a screeching halt if Kennedy had survived. And so, he had to die because they needed that stuff to keep on their program. Hello, Osbo. When When government interferes in business, it's not capitalism, it's mercantilism. Well, what is interference? You know, what is interference? If passing a law against importing heroin, is that interference in business? Yeah. Is it capitalism? No, no. It's nationalism. It's protecting your population. If that's what you're doing, if that's genuinely we were doing putting up a barrier to keep that poison out of our children's reach. Well, is that mercantilism? No, it's not. That's the exercise of sovereign government. So I guess what I'm saying is that there are times when it's appropriate for government to have a, a structural impact on the economy, but it is private industry that must consist of the economy, and that's where we're losing it right now. When what you're pointing toward is the way that uh, hyper super capitalism or corporate capitalism is just propelling us toward socialism. And I think that's where you're going with this, Osbo, is that um, from mercantilism to fascism to socialism is the way I would see it. Anyway, there's a lot to unpack in that. But anyway, thanks for your comment. And to just to consider, because that's one of the things that I think about a lot in terms of my wife's career in economic development is when is government the answer and when is it not the answer? And different circumstances come up with different answers to that. Anyway, thank you. Legal weed in Maryland coming up in July of 2023. I think that's a positive thing. I know my friends at Schiller Institute would not agree with me. They are very much into the slippery slope and in the way that it's now. There's so many stories of it being sold with adulterated with fentanyl and stuff that just completely ruins the young people that try it. And of course, Mark Kulak knows a lot about what's happened with the fentanyl crisis. That is a debate that doesn't make any sense to me. If marijuana naturally grown or even grown in their safe facilities, you know, is a reasonable alternative to alcohol, then I think it's a good thing. Some people will never uh, stop drinking, and some people don't drink at all. But alcohol has a very, very bad effect generally on our health as a nation. And if something else is there that's not as harmful, that doesn't cause you to run your car off the road into a telephone pole, then why not? And then I do like the idea of having a state uh, control over the quality because of the fear that something you buy off the street could very well be adulterated with these horrible um, fentanyl products that they're coming up with and poisoning us with. Just my opinion. Yeah, If Professor did a show on Blavatsky, I'm glad to see that. She was from um uh, I think it's Donetsk. Anyway, it's one of the cities that's the center of this of Ukraine, and so interesting to see the connections between British intelligence and that Ukraine, of the 1850s, and British intelligence and Zelensky today, you know, blowing up pipelines. And this is, I guess this is really the big question that keeps bouncing back and forth in my mind is, when I watch Garland Nixon and the Duran this morning, their theme really is that it is the United States that is behind all of these things. It is America. The United States is gutting the economy of Europe. One of the points made is, who's responsible for the lack of gas and oil products to fuel the European industry and homes over the winter? Who's responsible for that? Well, European governments and press, are all saying it's Putin. It's Putin did it. Putin has taken away your gas and he's going to starve you, and it's Putin. But who is going to benefit from impoverishing Europe and taking away its industrial base? It's the Americans. It's the American behemoth, the financial system. And what's left out of that is all of the participation of the City of London in the British financial system, which, if we follow Harley Schlanger's thinking and most of the other people that I find associated with Schiller and LaRouche, know that no, this is the old empire. This is the empire that came from Babylon and in Egypt and Constantinople, Venice, Amsterdam, city of Rome. That city of London. Freudian slip. City of London. That's where the real power is. That huge loot that was absconded with over the ages by different armies and emperors, and now it's just extending its power through the Rothschilds and the banking system, the Morgans and the Rothschilds and the Roosevelts and the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, on and on. But it's all tentacles of the same ancient beast, the seven-headed beast with seven crowns, the red dragon. The red dragon from the book of Revelation. The red dragon, the first ship of the British East India Company. A point David Underdown brought up this morning on Twitter. The red dragon is the apocalypse. So, is the British East India Company an agent of Satan? Well, a lot of people would say it is. But there you go. Okay, we've got some comments here on the Rothschild. Lynn Forster, Lady de Rothschild, the widow, is a Jersey girl. And she's made a lot of interesting splashes in the news in connection with Hillary Clinton over the years. I'm aware of that. but I'm going to actually go over to the Washington Post and read this little obituary that they have. I'll share it with you just because I think that the text in here it covers a lot of points that are important, even though democracy dies in darkness, and so does journalism at the Post. All right, and here we go. Evelyn de Rothschild, banking heir and advisor to the Queen, dies at 91. Standing 6'4", Mr. Rothschild saw himself as a keeper of his family's legacy. Evelyn de Rothschild, who controlled the British wing of his family's empire for nearly 3 decades, wielding his name and immense wealth in banking, government, and at Buckingham Palace, where he advised Queen Elizabeth II on financial matters, died November 7th at his home in London. He was 91. The Rothschild Archive, a family-operated depository of historical records, announced Mr. Rothschild's death, but did not provide a cause. Mr. Rothschild took control of N.M. Rothschild and Sons. You know that one. That's Nathan Rothschild, the great Nathan of the 1812 War of 1812 financial scandal that uh, we've talked about many times. Yeah, Nathan Rothschild. That that of the 5 sons, that is the British branch. Took control in 1976 and operated it both in strategy and in tone in the spirit of his forefathers as global banking conglomerates emerged with faceless bankers engaging in a risky hedging strategies. Mr. Rothschild took a more cautious route, executing corporate finance deals forged through personal relationships. Yeah, personal, all right. All right, here's what you're going to do. Where's that picture? I'll show you a personal relationship. There it is. Look at this. That's a personal relationship. All right. Okay, Sir Charles, or King Charles the Third, Charles the Third. That's Irish. I didn't mean that offensively. That's just the way you say it with the Irish accent. No offense there, Your Highness, your hubbliness, your whatever you want. Yes, and the great de Reptile family, Sir Evelyn de Reptile, is directing his more human colleague Charles to exactly how to handle the Queen's finances. Oh my God! Well, that's enough out of them, out of the darkness of the Washington Post. Not a dealer, just watching the markets. Cool. Yeah, it is interesting, the gold market and the silver market, Remember free silver? Did you guys ever study about free silver? It's very important in American history, the silver movement and what happened. The idea was, the banks, of course, they had control over the gold, and there wasn't enough gold in circulation to do business, and it was causing a lot of uh, financial panics in the banks, and farmers unable to sell their crops, and just all kinds of terrible problems. And the idea was, well, let's just start using silver in addition to gold, because it's another precious metal and people respect the value of it, and so let's just use that. William Jennings Bryan, and to try to improve the lot of the average person. Free silver, and of course that was that was beaten down along with William Jennings Bryan and everybody that supported it. As I began, this is Corky. I began paying attention after 9/11. My line was too late, police state. Came true, but not absolute. Yeah, we're still hanging on. We still got that foundation, the we've still got the the frame, and we just need to put the walls back up and fix the roof and get back to being a free, sovereign republic. How do we do it? Well, we got to beat the banks. We got to defeat them somehow. Let's see what else is on you guys' mind. Hello, being here. I think all power should be state to state only. Government needs to be majorly downsized. Yeah, that's one of the things I was just reviewing this fascinating book. It's one that I haven't read cover to cover, but it's got so much good stuff in it by David Livingstone, Black Terror, White Soldiers, Islam, Fascism, and the New Age. And the myth of America's role in the defense of democracy became part of university curriculum through the efforts of the General Education Board, chartered by the John D. Rockefeller and the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, known as General Education or the Western Civilization course, and centered at the Rockefeller-funded University of Chicago. They created a Hegelian interpretation of history, which presented it as the development of secular democracy that began in ancient Greece and reached the ultimate fulfillment in the United States. To justify its entry into the war, the U.S. was put forward as part of a Western civilization of which the main Allied powers, France and England, were also a part, and to whose defense they should now devote themselves. The Rockefeller education has been a brainwashing project. It's Freud and Bernays and Lippmann and Edward Mandell House and all of the people we've uncovered and talked about in action. It's perverting the minds of young people to believe in a Hegelian narrative, in which we, of course, are always the good guys. And so what we have to do is go out into the world and get rid of the bad guys. We can't just be us. We can't be that state to state sovereign country that's going to, you know, live and let live. We can't do it because we are the good guys in this narrative that they keep pumping at us through eighth grade class and 10th grade American history and all of these crazy books that they write that, manifest destiny. Yeah, it's not our manifest destiny to do anything except for to try to, get back to being exactly what you say, being here, a sovereign state that deals with other sovereign states and works out problems using reason and not ever having to resort to war. Christy, you're picking up on what I was saying from Garland and the Duran. That's what they're saying. They're saying that the end game for Europe is that they're going to be their standard of living is going to be reduced to a point where they're going to want to just do anything that they can do to make a living. And meanwhile, the industry is going to have been rebuilt in the United States because our standard of living has been lowered so much that we can actually build things in America again, with the Chinese having raised their standard of living so much that it's no longer necessary for American capital to export the means of production. We could rebuild American industry and profit from it with the European market, thereby just turning the entire continent of Europe into an American colony. And I think this is what Garland was saying, and this makes sense to me, because once again, let's go back to the top of the show. And what was I thinking then? It is that this financial system is run by people that are completely divorced from any idea of spiritual goodness or God or anything that, we take for granted as, part of this amazing gift of being alive. And, so they just want everything to be dollars and cents, digits, ones and zeros, so they can manipulate it. And they do manipulate it to the concentration of wealth to the center. And that, of course, is this financial empire, whether it's in London or Washington or New York or wherever. It is an empire. Maybe it's now already in Kazakhstan or in Antarctica. Wherever it is an empire. It is not ever going to make decisions in the interest of the common people. In fact, the management of the common people, that's what the governments are for. Governments are here now to keep us quiet, to make sure that we don't rise up while they continue consolidating until at some point they can, you know, put those swastikas back on their arms and say, hey, we're running things now. Do what you're told, or else. I didn't know that. I'll have to look into that. Thanks, Mobster. I'm going to have to learn about this McCormick case too, David. Interesting. McCormick's widow took young Henry Luce as a protege and paid for his Yale education. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Considering who Henry Luce is. Where did he come from? And then there was the original partner in his publishing business that something happened to. Yeah, King Prince Charles. Hello, Cree warrior. Keep living the illusions of freedom, slave to a self-serving state of money, the root of all evil. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying is that we're not willing to pull back the curtain. We don't want to see behind that veil of secrecy that they've built, for our comfort. And I just can't live with that. I cannot. If I once I realize that manipulation is going on, that there is, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, then I've got, if I don't do it, maybe I'll have Toto with me and Toto will do it. But somebody's going to pull that curtain back. And hopefully this whole corrupt system will fall. From so many different angles, it's under attack right now. And once again from Christie, and they'll have all that cheap labor in the US from the migrant crisis. Yeah, that's also part of it, isn't it? They're going to rebuild American industry with uh, with cheap labor, and that's going to, supplant all of what's left of our indigenous small business based towns and cities, small banks, all gone. Anything you want, make sure you got your social credit score up high enough to get what you need. Don't say things that are not approved. Well, I don't want a violent revolution. I just want this to be unfolded, unpacked, and taken down. This All right, a lot of interesting comments that I'm not up to enough. There's one of, that leads into one of my favorite subjects, and that is Degussa. And, our Gesellschaft. And how is that connected to NUMEC? And why does the world allow the uh, the Jewish, the Nazi race laws to be a basis for the expropriation of the Jewish company that started all that? Why doesn't somebody say, hey, without the Nazi race laws, this wouldn't have happened. So let's set aside all these transactions because they can't be valid if they're based upon, the extermination of Jews. And I've pointed out, there's a great columns about this in a publication called Mining Awareness. Just Google it, you'll find it. It's very interesting. I think they've given up. I think, Biden is giving up on the jab program. Why aren't they trying to scare us again this winter? Remember last winter and they said, it's going to be a winter of death. If you don't take the jab, you're going to be dead by spring. They said that last winter. They're not saying anything this winter. Why? Well, I think, they changed the narrative. The war, the potential of World War III is now the big narrative. And we now have got to go out and throw eggs at politicians and try to raise consciousness of the threat of all-out nuclear war between the superpowers. But there's so many things that they could do to really fight this war that have nothing to do with nukes that they could have been doing all along. First of all, if Russia really wanted to conquer Ukraine, they would have bombed the infrastructure in the first day of the war. So they're not really trying to win in terms of actually defeating militarily the army of the Ukrainians. They're not trying to win. They just wanted, according to them, to do a special program, a special military operation, which is a limited scope and was not meant to go beyond the boundaries of the Donbass in terms of grabbing territory. They wanted to go in, they said, and clean out the Nazis, go into Kiev. But they didn't do it. They didn't stay long enough. They didn't bring enough troops. They did not have what they said they had in terms of overwhelming military operation. Maybe they do have, all of that stuff stored up. Maybe they are building up to do a big offensive in the winter, you know. But this stuff about, oh, the winter's coming, they're going to have to freeze the front lines. They didn't freeze any front lines in World War II. Look at how the Battle of Stalingrad developed. If you want to see how they fight in the winter, they fight in the winter if there's a will to fight. It's that I think they're pulling punches, and they've been pulling punches all along. And now they've gotten to a point where they're willing to destroy the infrastructure. And now, the Americans, Sullivan comes in and says, "Hey, we got to work something out here. We got to, you, I don't care if you kill all of our soldiers, but don't kill my power plants, right?" But if you really wanted to win Russia, why didn't you cut off the oil supply to Ukraine? Why didn't you stop down the pipelines? Why didn't you stop selling oil to people that supported Ukraine? Why didn't you use real economic weapons that you have? Did you still need the foreign currency? I thought you said your ruble was now going to be, strong enough on its own. Or is all of this already worked out by people sitting around in directors' chairs thinking, well, let's get Putin to do this, and then we'll get Zelensky to say this, and then the banks will finance this for another 30 days. No, I'm very, very suspicious of all of this stuff in terms of why does there have to be a war? And this being Veterans Day, I think it's a good way to close the show is to just say, God, please save us from more war. Enlighten us. Teach us how to walk in the ways of peace. All right. Y'all have a good weekend. I'll see you Monday. Bye now.